The air around you is made of roughly 78% nitrogen. Yet almost every plant on Earth is unable to use it directly. This raises an obvious question. If nitrogen is everywhere, why do farmers spend billions of dollars every year buying nitrogen fertilizer? The answer begins inside a single nitrogen molecule. Every atom contains electrons. These electrons occupy regions around the nucleus called electron shells. The outermost shell is where chemical bonds are formed. Atoms become more stable by completing their outer electron shell. One way to do that is by sharing electrons with other atoms. This is called a covalent bond. When atoms share one pair of electrons, we call it a single bond. Two shared pairs create a double bond. Nitrogen goes even further. Two nitrogen atoms share 3 pairs of electrons simultaneously. That's 6 shared electrons, forming a triple covalent bond. This triple bond is one of the strongest chemical bonds found in nature. Breaking it requires about 940 kilojoules of energy per mole. Plants simply don't have enough biochemical machinery to break this bond. They evolved to absorb nitrogen only after another organism has already transformed it. That organism is usually a bacterium, invisible to the naked eye, but absolutely essential for life on Earth. Certain bacteria possess an extraordinary enzyme called nitrogenase. An enzyme is a specialized protein that speeds up chemical reactions without being consumed. Think of it as a molecular machine built for one specific task. Nitrogenase performs one of the most difficult chemical reactions in biology. It grabs atmospheric nitrogen and forces apart its triple bond, something plants simply cannot do on their own. But breaking such a strong bond isn't free. Every chemical reaction requires energy, and living cells store that energy inside a molecule called ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. The name sounds complicated, but its job is simple. It is the universal energy currency used by almost every living cell on Earth. Each ATP molecule stores energy inside the bonds connecting its phosphate groups. When one phosphate is released, that stored chemical energy becomes immediately available for the cell. Every heartbeat, every muscle contraction, every nerve impulse, and even this bacterial reaction depends on billions of ATP molecules being recycled every second. Nitrogenase consumes enormous amounts of ATP just to break a single nitrogen molecule. Nature spends an incredible amount of energy simply making nitrogen available for life. Once the triple bond is broken, nitrogen atoms combine with hydrogen to form ammonia. This transformation is called biological nitrogen fixation. Plants absorb this fixed nitrogen through their roots. From there, they build amino acids, proteins, chlorophyll, DNA, and RNA, the molecular foundation of every living organism. This means your breakfast didn't begin on a farm. It began when microscopic bacteria successfully broke one of the strongest chemical bonds found anywhere in nature. For millions of years, biological nitrogen fixation kept Earth's nitrogen cycle remarkably stable. Then humans changed the rules. In the early 1900s, chemists Fritz Haber and Carl Bosch developed a process capable of breaking nitrogen's triple bond using extremely high temperatures, pressures, and non-iron catalyst. Inside these reactors, temperatures reach around 450 degrees Celsius and pressures exceed 150 atmospheres. Conditions far more extreme than anything a living cell could survive. The result is ammonia on an enormous scale. Today, nearly half of the nitrogen inside your body was once produced by the Haber-Bosch process. Without synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, scientists estimate that nearly half of today's global population could not be fed using current agricultural systems. But chemistry rarely offers free solutions. Every system has limits, and ecosystems have limits too. Plants can only absorb nitrogen, while other nutrients, especially phosphorus, potassium, and trace elements, remain available in balanced proportions. When nitrogen becomes excessive, plants stop being the limiting factor. The surplus begins escaping into groundwater, rivers, and the atmosphere. Most of this escaped nitrogen travels as nitrate, a highly soluble ion that dissolves easily in water and moves almost wherever water flows. This is why a fertilizer spread in one field can eventually influence lakes, reservoirs, and even the drinking water of cities located hundreds of kilometers away. Nitrogen isn't toxic by itself. In fact, every living organism depends on it. The problem begins when one nutrient becomes available much faster than any ecosystem evolved to handle. Microscopic algae normally grow slowly because nutrients are limited. Nitrogen acts like a building material for proteins, chlorophyll, and enzymes, allowing cells to divide and reproduce. When nitrate suddenly becomes abundant, many algal species stop competing for nutrients. Instead, they reproduce almost as fast as sunlight allows photosynthesis to supply energy. Photosynthesis converts sunlight into chemical energy. Chlorophyll captures photons, exciting electrons that ultimately help produce sugars from carbon dioxide and water. Nitrogen is essential because chlorophyll itself contains nitrogen atoms. At first, more algae may seem like a good thing. More photosynthesis should mean more oxygen. But ecosystems don't stop there. Algae have short life cycles. Within days, enormous numbers of cells die and sink to the bottom, becoming food for decomposer bacteria. These bacteria perform aerobic respiration. Just like humans, they consume oxygen to extract energy from organic matter. The more algae they decompose, the more oxygen they remove from the water. Eventually, oxygen concentrations fall below the level required by fish, crustaceans, and many aquatic organisms. Scientists call these oxygen-poor environments hypoxic zones. If oxygen approaches zero, the ecosystem enters an anoxic state. Only microorganisms adapted to oxygen-free environments continue thriving, while most complex aquatic life disappears. This entire chain reaction, from fertilizer to oxygen depletion, can begin with nutrients leaving a single agricultural field after heavy rainfall. A microscopic imbalance can eventually reshape an entire lake. Not every algal bloom is equally dangerous. Some of the greatest threats actually come from cyanobacteria. Despite their name, they aren't algae at all. They're photosynthetic bacteria that have existed on Earth for more than 2.5 billion years. Long before plants covered the continents, cyanobacteria transformed Earth's atmosphere by releasing oxygen through photosynthesis. Without them, complex life, including humans, might never have evolved. But under nutrient-rich conditions, some cyanobacteria begin producing powerful molecules called cyanotoxins. One of the most studied is microcystin, a toxin capable of damaging liver cells in humans and other animals. Microcystins don't exist to attack humans. Scientists believe they evolved primarily to protect cyanobacteria from environmental stress and competition with other microorganisms. Humans become accidental victims. Now imagine a city's drinking water reservoir during a massive bloom. Millions of cyanobacterial cells are suspended throughout the water. At first glance, it may only look greener than usual. Water treatment plants remove particles remarkably well. The challenge begins when cyanobacterial cells rupture, releasing dissolved toxins that are far smaller than the cells themselves. Removing these dissolved molecules often requires advanced treatment technologies such as activated carbon adsorption or ozonation. Both processes significantly increase operational costs. Activated carbon works because its enormous internal surface area traps organic molecules. Just 1 gram can have a surface area exceeding 1,000 square meters. Those additional treatment steps require more energy, more chemicals, and more maintenance. Over time, those expenses become part of the cost of delivering safe drinking water. A nitrogen molecule captured from the atmosphere, transformed by bacteria, spread as fertilizer, washed into a lake, stimulated cyanobacteria, and finally reached a water treatment plant. That's how a microscopic chemical bond can influence the water flowing from your kitchen faucet. Nitrogen doesn't stop moving after plants absorb it. The cycle continues inside the soil, where billions of microorganisms keep transforming nitrogen from one chemical form into another. Some bacteria convert ammonia into nitrite. Others convert nitrite into nitrate. This process is called nitrification, and it makes nitrogen more mobile inside the environment. Under oxygen-poor conditions, a different group of bacteria performs the opposite reaction. They remove oxygen atoms from nitrate, gradually converting it back into nitrogen gas. This process is called denitrification. But denitrification isn't always complete. Sometimes bacteria stop halfway, releasing nitrous oxide instead of nitrogen gas. Nitrous oxide is a greenhouse gas. Molecule for molecule, it traps far more heat than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period, and it also contributes to the destruction of stratospheric ozone. This means the same nitrogen that helps produce our food can also contribute to climate change if ecosystems receive more fertilizer than they can naturally process. Scientists now recognize that Earth's nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, and water cycles are deeply interconnected. Changing one inevitably influences the others. Understanding those connections is becoming one of the greatest scientific challenges of the 21st century. Agriculture, biodiversity, water security, and climate all depend on the same invisible chemistry. The next time you eat a piece of bread or drink a glass of water, remember that neither exists without billions of microorganisms quietly performing chemistry beneath your feet. In the next episode, we'll follow one surprising element that can unlock phosphorus already trapped inside the soil. It isn't considered essential for most plants, yet it may help feed the future. Its name is silicon.